The sun rose blood-red over the village of Grendale, casting a strange hue across the stone walls and thatched roofs. It was a cruel irony, Celine thought, that such a beautiful morning would be her last. Shackled and flanked by two of Lord Brevon's armoured guards, she walked slowly through the square where she had once shopped for bread and herbs, where she had watched her son play in the dust with a wooden sword. Now, the people who had once greeted her with warm smiles kept their heads low, afraid to meet her eyes. Celine held her head high, though the chains chafed at her wrists. She was not guilty. Everyone knew that. But truth had never stood a chance under Brevon's rule. He was a petty lord with a hunger for control, and when Celine had refused to give him the land her family had farmed for generations, he had accused her of conspiracy. A staged fire, a missing ledger, a few paid witnesses, and just like that, she was condemned. From the edge of the crowd, Malin watched. His fists clenched until his nails bit into his palms. His mother's silver hair was unkempt, but her eyes were defiant. The guards shoved her forward, and she stumbled, but did not fall. At 15, Malin was tall for his age, but his face still held the roundness of youth. Tears welled in his eyes, but he refused to let them fall. Not yet. The gallows loomed ahead, a stark silhouette against the morning sky. The wooden platform had been erected overnight, as though her death had been a casual afterthought. Malin wanted to scream, to rush forward, to tear down the ropes and the guards and the lies. But he remembered what his mother had whispered the night before they took her away: wait. Watch. Learn. He had done all three. The square filled slowly, not with shouts or cheers, but with silence. Fear hung in the air like fog. Brevon arrived last, sitting atop a black stallion, dressed in dark finery, a smug smile playing on his lips. He made a show of dismounting, then addressed the crowd with mock solemnity. "This woman," he said, pointing a jeweled hand at Celine, "has betrayed the peace of our village. She has plotted against your lord, endangered your families, and conspired with enemies of the realm. But let it be known, justice will be swift and fair under my rule." There was no cheer. No sound but the cawing of a raven overhead. Celine was led to the platform. The hangman, a grim figure in a hooded cloak, adjusted the noose. She did not flinch. Her eyes searched the crowd until they found Malin. She smiled. And in that moment, something changed. Malin felt it in his bones, a fire kindled in his chest. This could not be the end. Not like this. He backed away from the crowd, slipping between people, his mind racing. He didn't know what he was going to do, only that he had to do something. In the shadow of the old bell tower, Malin stopped. An old man stood there, leaning heavily on a gnarled staff. His clothes were travel-worn, his eyes sharp and knowing. He had been in the village only a few days, a silent observer, always at the edge of things. Now he looked at Malin and spoke. "The spark is in your eyes, boy. Do you know what to do with it?" Malin blinked. "Who are you?" "Call me Ezra. More important is what you are. You're not just a farmer's son. Not anymore. Come." Ezra led Malin through a narrow alley to a forgotten corner of the village, where an old stone fountain trickled water over moss-covered rocks. From beneath his cloak, Ezra pulled a small leather-bound book. "This," he said, pressing it into Malin's hands, "is a piece of history. It belonged to your grandfather. There was a time when this land was free, before men like Brevon poisoned it. That time can come again, but only if you act." Malin opened the book. The pages were filled with careful script, sketches of symbols, stories of resistance. It felt like holding a burning coal. "What can I do? I'm just one person." Ezra's eyes narrowed. "One person can be the spark. Your mother is brave, but they want to silence her to silence all of you. Don't let them. Learn. Fight. But do it wisely." The book trembled in Malin's hands. "I want to save her. Then listen to me. There is more at work here than you know. Tonight, you and I will begin. Not with swords, but with truth. Back in the square, the noose was tightened. Celine looked out over her home. She could see the trees in the distance, the hills where she had played as a child. She felt no fear. Only sorrow that Malin had to witness this. The hangman stepped back. The lever was pulled. And nothing happened. A crack. A groan. The platform shuddered and collapsed, not enough to break a neck but enough to send Celine tumbling to the ground. The crowd gasped. Guards rushed forward. Lord Brevin shouted. But the execution had failed. Malin, hidden on a rooftop, watched with wide eyes. Ezra had kept his promise. A message, the old man had said the night before, as they loosened key bolts and soaked ropes in vinegar. This is not justice. It is spectacle. Let them choke on their own lies. The guards hauled Celine upright. A new gallows would be built. But the damage was done. Whispers spread. Superstition bloomed. A failed execution was an omen. And the people remembered. That night, Malin returned to his small home. He lit a candle, opened the book, and began to read. Not just to save his mother, but to awaken a sleeping land. He didn't know what the days ahead would bring. But he knew he would not remain silent. He would become the fire. Night clung to the village of Grendale like a heavy cloak, hiding secrets in every shadow. In a narrow loft above the stable behind his family's abandoned cottage, Malin sat hunched over the leather-bound book Ezra had given him. A single candle flickered beside him, its dim glow barely enough to light the pages. Still, he read with the hunger of someone who had seen the edge of despair and now clung to any strand of hope. The book, worn and stained, contained more than words. It breathed the voices of people long silenced. Sketches of resistance emblems, codes of forgotten brotherhoods, poems written in the darkest prisons. Each page whispered a truth Malin had never been taught. And each truth kindled a storm in his chest. Ezra arrived near dawn, as the first silver light crept through the slats in the walls. "You've read it?" he asked quietly, leaning on his staff. Malin nodded. His eyes were rimmed red, his hands smudged with soot from turning the brittle pages. These stories, they weren't rebels. They were protectors. Guardians of freedom. Ezra smiled faintly. History is written by those who build the tallest gallows. But truth? Truth hides in quiet places, waiting for someone brave enough to speak it again. They descended into the woods at the edge of Grendale, far from watching eyes. There, in a hollow glade surrounded by ancient yew trees, Ezra revealed what he had not yet shared. This place was once a meeting ground, he said, brushing aside leaves to reveal a circular stone platform carved with runes. Long ago, this land was part of a kingdom ruled not by fear, but by law and balance. Until men like Brevin took pieces for themselves. Malin touched the cold stone. And my grandfather? He fought against them. Yes. He was one of the last wardens of the old code. He believed in a land where a mother wasn't hanged for saying no to a tyrant. Malin stood. Then I will fight, too. Not with hatred. With purpose. Ezra nodded. Then we begin. For weeks, Malin trained in secret. Ezra taught him not only how to move quietly and listen more than speak, but how to read the signs of nature, how to track footsteps, how to slip through a town like smoke. But most important of all, he taught him the weight of leadership. "You're not just defying Brevin," he said one evening, while sharpening a small blade. "You're offering people something they've forgotten, choice. And that scares tyrants more than swords." Malin learned quickly. His eyes sharpened, his muscles honed. His mind, once filled with simple fears, now held strategy. One night, Ezra brought him to the edge of the healer's quarters. "Tonight, you meet someone important." Inside, Candles flickered around rows of drying herbs and stacked vials. At the center, a woman stood over a patient, her dark hands moving with practiced care. Her long braids were tied behind her back, and her face, though lined with years, held the quiet strength of one who had seen sorrow and kept going. "Naima," Ezra said, bowing slightly. She looked up. Her eyes landed on Malin. "So this is the fire you spoke of?" "He's ready," Ezra replied. Naima studied Malin carefully. "Then come. Let me show you what pain looks like." She led him to a small room. There, a man lay with bandaged legs and a face bruised beyond recognition. He spoke against Brevin in the mines. They made an example of him. Malin's stomach turned. Why didn't anyone help? Because help means punishment. Because fear is thicker than blood. He looked at the injured man. "No more." Naima smiled. "Good. Then you'll help me tomorrow. There are others like him. People who need more than hope. They need healing. They need someone to fight for them." Malin became a ghost in Grendale. By day, he walked the fields like any other boy, gathering firewood or tending to chores. By night, he ran messages between safe houses, studied old maps of secret tunnels under the manor, and carried herbs for Naima to wounded villagers. Word began to spread. Quietly. Carefully. They called him the Raven, a shadow that flew above Brevin's reach, watching, waiting. And then, one morning, Malin found a symbol scratched into the door of the old chapel, a circle within a triangle. "What does it mean?" he asked Ezra. "It means someone remembers. You're not alone." They followed signs, met others who had waited for someone to act. Farmers, blacksmiths, merchants, all tired of living in silence. Together, they began to plan. Malin returned to the square one evening, standing where the failed gallows still lingered, unused but not forgotten. He placed a single red cloth on the platform. A signal. A promise. At dawn, a crowd gathered. Just a handful. Naima. Ezra. A miner with broken fingers. A mother with 3 children. Malin stood before them and spoke. "They wanted us to forget who we are. But we remember. We are not slaves. We are not liars. We are not afraid. Not anymore." The wind stirred. Something ancient seemed to rise with it. "We will not burn the village. We will light a beacon. We will show the world that Grendale lives." The people stepped forward. One by one. Offering hands. Oaths. Trust. Ezra smiled. And thus, the awakening began. The sun rose like fire behind the hills of Grendale, casting golden rays over the dewy fields and rooftops. The village stirred slowly, unaware that the embers of rebellion were beginning to smolder beneath its soil. Malin stood at the edge of the forest, watching the road where a cart would soon roll in from the east, a cart meant to carry prisoners to the capital. One of those prisoners was Naima's cousin, Halem, accused of theft for taking bread to a starving family. He never even got to the bread, Naima had whispered, her eyes burning. They caught him near the bakery and beat him until he couldn't speak. Now he was to be paraded as a warning. But Malin had a plan. Ezra crouched beside him, his cloak blending with the mossy underbrush. "You remember what to do?" Malin nodded. "When the cart reaches the bend, I hit the axle with the spike. You throw the smoke orb. Naima pulls Halem out. We vanish. And if it goes wrong? It won't." Ezra gave a tight nod, then handed Malin the iron spike. "Then light the match." The plan unfolded like a breath held too long. As the wooden cart creaked over the bend near the dead oak, Malin sprang from the brush. His spike struck the axle, and the wheel cracked with a loud snap. Horses reared. The guards shouted. Then came the smoke, thick and choking, curling in shades of gray and blue. From the shadows, Naima rushed in, her cloak flaring. She reached Halem, slumped in chains, and cut his bonds with a dagger concealed in her belt. Ezra appeared like a wraith, hurling dust into the eyes of the panicked guards. Malin grabbed Halem's arm, steadying him. "Run!" They disappeared into the trees. By the time the smoke cleared, the cart was overturned and empty. The guards, coughing and blind, found only footprints leading into the woods. In a cave deep in the forest, Halem lay wrapped in a wool blanket, his wounds freshly cleaned. He stared at Malin with disbelief. "You saved me. You. A boy." Malin smiled. "A boy with a cause." Ezra stepped forward. "You rest now. Tomorrow, you tell your story." Loudly. Halem's eyes narrowed. "Why?" Naima answered, "Because truth spreads like fire. And fire consumes lies." The next day, whispers rippled through Grendale. The cart had been hit. The prisoner freed. The guards made fools. Lord Brevon's fury was thunderous. He ordered twice the patrols. Door-to-door searches. Interrogations. But he did not find Malin. Nor did he find the symbols now scrawled in chalk across fences and walls, the circle within the triangle. The mark of defiance. Malin met with his growing circle in a hidden barn just beyond the village. Farmers, tailors, a teacher, a miller, 15 in all. They called themselves the Ember Ring. "Our fight isn't with soldiers," Malin said. "It's with fear. We strike where they feel safest. We show the people they don't have to be afraid." They planned their next act, intercepting a grain shipment meant for Brevon's stores. The village starved while the manor gorged. Under cover of fog, they rerouted the shipment with stolen uniforms and forged documents. By morning, the grain had been distributed to families across Grendale. And pinned to each sack was a red cloth, the symbol of the Ember Ring. The people began to talk. Quietly at first. Then louder. Stories spread of a boy who defied a tyrant. Of a healer who protected the broken. Of a traveler who remembered the old code. Malin sat with Naima by the river one night, watching fireflies flicker over the water. "Do you think they believe in us?" he asked. Naima didn't answer right away. Then she said, "Some do. Others wait to see who survives. We need more than belief. We need action. You're already a spark, Malin. But sparks don't start fires alone." And then came the festival. Every year, Brevon forced the village to celebrate his rule. A parade, music, and cheap food, a mockery of joy. This year, Malin decided it would be different. He and the Ember Ring spent days preparing. Hidden banners. Fireworks repurposed into smoke bombs. Messages scribed on the underside of tables and carved into the backs of chairs. When the parade began, Malin mingled in the crowd. He wore a borrowed cloak, his face hidden. Brevon stood on a balcony above the square, smiling down at his domain. The first banner unfurled beneath him. "Freedom begins with fire." Then another. "We remember the old code." Then the smoke rose. Chaos broke. Children ran laughing into the fog, while guards coughed and stumbled. Tables overturned. And from the shadows, voices shouted the words Brevon feared most. "We are not afraid. Grendale is not yours." Malin climbed to the chapel roof, his heart pounding. He looked over the square, over the smoke and movement, and he felt it. A spark. Not just in him. Everywhere. He raised his arm. And the crowd below raised theirs. For one brilliant moment, the village was one. And Brevon, watching from above, felt the first chill of something he had never known. Doubt. But every fire draws response. That night, soldiers stormed homes. Naima was wounded shielding a boy. Ezra narrowly escaped. Malin fled to the forest, his heart torn between triumph and fear. The rebellion had begun. And nothing would be the same again. The days following the festival passed like a dream blurred by fire and smoke. Lord Brevon's wrath fell upon Grendale like a tempest. Homes were searched, families questioned, and curfews enforced. The red cloth of the ember ring became both a symbol of hope and a mark of danger. Any villager caught with one risked beatings or worse. Malin stayed hidden in the wildwood beyond the northern ridge, moving camp nightly and avoiding patrols that scoured the forests. Ezra, still recovering from a cracked rib earned during the escape, remained close to the cave network they had discovered long ago. Naima, despite her injuries, continued her healing work in secret, aided by younger women who ferried messages, herbs, and supplies. But the ember ring had grown. Word of the rebellion reached beyond Grendale. Messages were smuggled through merchants, scribbled in flour sacks, etched into the bottom of bread loaves. In the free city of Avelheim, a rebel network responded. They came not with armies, but with maps. Men and women in plain clothes but with fire in their eyes. They spoke in the language of resistance and brought tools for sabotage, medical knowledge, and coded letters from other villages under similar oppression. A secret camp was established deep in the western glen. The ember ring met them cautiously, but as stories were exchanged and plans laid out, a sense of unity formed. Malin, though still young, found himself treated with growing respect. One night, as rain tapped gently against the canvas of a makeshift shelter, Malin sat beside a rebel named Ryan, a wiry man with a sharp tongue and a sharper mind. "You know," Ryan said, tossing a pebble between his fingers, "most sparks flicker out. They burn bright and fast and leave only ash. But you're doing something different. You're building a fire that can spread." Malin looked at the flames dancing in the fire pit. "We just want our lives back. And they'll come at you with everything for daring to want that. Are you ready to lose more?" Malin thought of his mother. The gallows. The look in her eyes. "I already have." Plans were made for a prison break. Celine was still alive. The failed execution had delayed Brevon's plans, but not ended them. She was being held in a stone keep beneath Brevon's manor. Tight security. Few entrances. A schedule rigidly followed. But there was a weakness: the storm drains. Old records from the book Ezra gave Malin showed a hidden grate near the riverbed that led to the lower cells. The rebels would need timing, coordination, and someone inside. That someone came in the form of Luma, a servant girl loyal to Celine. For months she had slipped food and messages to her in secret. She agreed to help, risking everything. The night of the prison break came with cold winds and no moon. Malin, Naima, and Ryan moved through the drains, waist deep in filth and silence. Above, the manor gleamed in torchlight. Luma had left the gate unlocked, just as planned. Inside, the corridors were slick with damp and reeked of mildew. Naima navigated the path from a rough memory drawn on parchment. Each step echoed. When they reached Celine's cell, she was waiting. Her hair was streaked with gray, her wrists bruised, but her eyes blazed with recognition. "Malin," she breathed. He rushed to her, keys in hand, trembling. The chains clanked to the floor. "You came." "I never stopped coming," he said. Naima wrapped a blanket around Celine. Ryan led the way back. But they weren't unseen. A lone guard stumbled across the open grate. Alarm bells rang. Malin took Celine's hand and ran. Chased through corridors and tunnels, dodging arrows and blades, they made it to the river. A rope bridge. Guards approaching. Ryan stayed behind, holding the passage. Malin shouted, but Ryan only grinned. "Get her out." Malin dragged Celine across the bridge. Behind them, the tunnel collapsed with a roar. Ryan was gone. Back at the rebel camp, mourning for Ryan was brief but heartfelt. His sacrifice had bought them something greater than hope. Proof. Selene was alive. And when word spread, people listened. But it wasn't just that she lived. It was what she was. Ezra revealed it one morning, standing before the ember ring. Selene is more than a mother, more than a farmer. She's the last surviving heir to the true line of kings who once ruled these lands in peace. Murmurs rippled through the camp. That bloodline ended, someone said. Ezra shook his head. It was hidden. To protect it. Until now. Malin turned to his mother. Is it true? Selene looked weary. I never wanted power. Only peace. But if my voice can rally others, then I will use it. That night, in the heart of the camp, she spoke. We have been quiet too long. We were taught that silence was safety. But safety under chains is not safety, it is surrender. I will not surrender. Cheers rose. Banners were raised. The fire was no longer hidden. Lord Brevin responded with terror. His forces raided nearby farms, torched barns, took hostages. The village of Norwin resisted and was burned to ash. The Ember Ring countered with precision, sabotaging supply lines, turning patrols, broadcasting Selene's voice via hidden speakers smuggled into towns. The land stirred. Malin, now recognized as both symbol and strategist, led with a calm fury. He saw the weight in every choice, the cost in every move. But he stood taller with each day. One night, as he sat beside a weary Naima, he whispered, "Will it ever end?" She looked at the stars. Not end. Change. If we want a world where boys don't need to become soldiers, we have to build it. Brick by painful brick. Malin leaned his head back. Then let's keep building. The sky above Grendale was heavy with smoke and ash. The distant hills flickered with the glow of torches, and the horizon trembled with the sound of war drums. It was no longer a rebellion. It was an uprising. Villages that had once cowered under Lord Brevin's rule had risen, inspired by the return of Selene and the flame carried by Malin. The Ember Ring had become a wildfire. In the secret glen that now served as the rebellion's headquarters, plans for the final confrontation were being drawn. Maps lay unfurled over tree stump tables. Messages arrived hourly by runners or coded flares. The mood was tense but resolute. Malin stood over the central map, his eyes scanning every valley, road, and checkpoint around Brevin's manor. He'll expect a siege, said Selene beside him. Her voice had grown stronger since her rescue, and there was steel in it now. But he won't expect unity. He's ruled through division. We'll undo him with the opposite. Naima entered the tent, her sleeves rolled and hands ink-stained from writing orders and messages. The villagers from Caldrith and Glenfort are on their way. They bring carts, farm tools, even old rifles. They're not soldiers, but they'll fight. Ezra leaned on his staff nearby. That's what Brevin has never understood. True power isn't fear. It's love, and the courage it inspires. Malin looked at each of them. Then tomorrow, we end it. As dawn crept over the hills, a wave of people emerged from the tree lines. They came in loose ranks, farmers with pitchforks, merchants with hammers, children carrying food and water for the fighters. Rebels from Avelheim had fortified makeshift defenses along the old stone roads leading to Brevin's manor. The manor itself loomed in the distance, its towers casting long shadows across the valley. Brevin's banners still flew, a silver snake on black cloth, but they fluttered nervously. Inside, Lord Brevin paced before his private guards. His face was pale, his hands trembling though he barked orders with venom. They think themselves kings and queens. They think a peasant and a bastard queen will bring me down. Arm the ballistae. Set fire traps at the bridges. Kill anyone who waves a red cloth. But the fear in his voice betrayed him. For the first time, he did not control the game. Malin stood at the head of the gathered force. Selene was beside him, dressed not in royal garb, but in a simple cloak with the old crest of the true line, a phoenix rising from flame, stitched at the shoulder. Naima stood to his left, hands steady despite the tremble in her legs. He raised his voice. We do not come as conquerors. We come as children of this soil, tired of the lash, tired of the silence. We come for justice. A roar answered him. The battle began. It was not a clash of armies, but a storm of resolve. Brevin's mercenaries fought with brutality, but the rebels fought with heart. Every inch gained cost dearly, but the people pressed forward. Naima worked furiously behind the front, turning broken wagons into mobile triage posts. Ezra led a small team to sabotage the main gate's locking mechanisms. Malin, wielding only a staff and shield, rallied fighters where the line buckled. His voice carried commands with the clarity of a veteran. The Ember Ring fought beside him, old comrades who had once whispered in barns, now leading charges across bloodied courtyards. Selene climbed the outer walls with a group of scouts, determined to reach the top of the central tower and end the symbol of Brevin's power. By sunset, the manor grounds were aflame. Inside the great hall, Brevin fled to his chambers, clutching a jeweled dagger. The rebels burst through the door moments later. It was Malin who stepped inside first. Brevin raised the dagger, snarling. You think you've won, boy? Kill me and you become me. Malin stepped forward slowly. We won't kill you. Not in anger. You will stand trial, before the people you tried to break. Selene entered behind him. Her presence made Brevin stumble. The true line, he whispered, voice cracking. No, she said. The true will of the people. Guards disarmed Brevin. He was led away. In the days that followed, peace did not descend like sunlight. It came in waves, hesitant, uncertain, but real. Trials were held. The gallows were dismantled. The manor became a hall of voices, where villagers spoke freely of needs and dreams. Selene was not crowned queen. She refused it. No crowns, she said. No thrones. Only hands, joined to rebuild. She formed a council, chosen by vote. Malin sat at its head, not as ruler, but as reminder. The Ember Ring dissolved, not in defeat, but in transformation. Its members became farmers again. Healers. Teachers. Naima reopened the old infirmary. Ezra left to help other towns find their strength. Malin stood one evening by the broken gallows, now replaced by a small garden. He looked up at the sky, where the stars blinked peacefully. Naima joined him, placing a flower at the edge of the garden. Think we did enough? He asked. She smiled softly. We started something. Now it belongs to all of them. He looked at her, warmth in his eyes. You think they'll remember us? Naima took his hand. They'll remember what we gave them. A voice. A choice. A future. They stood together as the wind stirred the leaves. A new dawn had come. The gallows were gone. But the fire remained.